tips on self-publishing and book marketing? Then this is a show for you. Hi, my name is author Tonya Duncan Ellis, and I'm here for an episode of Write This, my author interview show. And today I am pleased to welcome prolific author Reesa Shayne, who will talk about her children's picture books and book marketing and also diversity in children's literature. So I'm so excited to have her here. I've been following her for several months and seeing all kinds of books that she's written throughout the time of the pandemic, and now she has several. So I'm excited to get tips from her on being prolific as a writer in book marketing. I see that she's tuned in, so I'll invite her on now. Let's see, get her on, and thank you guys for joining. Let's see, we got her here. Let's see, and then, okay, great. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, Tonya. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I have followed you for a while. I feel like I think this is the first time I've actually spoken to you directly. We've communicated online for years now.
Yep.
So
I know. It's been a minute now.
Right. And actually, I want to share you all. She helped me out because a year or so ago, I accidentally forwarded some of my Sophie Washington books to her, and you were gracious enough to send them back. So thank you.
I think that was that during the pandemic?
Yes. I think somehow, I don't know how, but I sent like a big bulk pack of books to you. So
I remember.
Woman's going to say, get her away from me. No.
All good.
Yes.
We worked it out.
But can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you based? And tell us about your books.
Yeah, so I am based in Metro Atlanta. So I say Metro Atlanta because I'm not in the city of Atlanta, but I'm outside of Atlanta and close enough to be considered Atlanta. And I am originally from Connecticut, but I moved here almost 10 years ago. So I've been a Southerner for a little bit now. And I have self-published all of my children's books since 2018. The first book I did was in 2018. It's called Polly Pear, and it was the first one I did, and I learned so much in that entire process because I just jumped in. Once I had my story idea, I just jumped in, and I think that looking back, I probably should have did a lot more research before I started out, but I learned so much. And every time I publish a book, I learn something new. So I am now releasing my 5th book in March of 2024. It's still weird to say 2024 now. I always almost say 2023. And I'll actually have 2 books coming next year, but I haven't announced the second one yet, which will be in the fall. But in the spring, I'll have I Breathe for Me. So plug for my children's book. Here's the hardcover version that's coming.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
In March. Thank you. So I'm excited about that. And so I think I have about 9 books total because this is my 6th children's picture book, but then I also have companion activity books, so coloring books, that match the picture book to kind of extend the fun and make it, more of a robust experience for kids. So, yeah.
That sounds amazing. Now, what drew you to writing children's books in particular when you started writing?
So, fun fact, I wrote a romance novella first. And then I pivoted to children's book because I always had that. I think I originally look back, you know how your Facebook memories pop up? I had the idea for my first children's book in 2012.
Oh, wow.
And a Facebook memory popped up one day and I was like, oh, that's right. And I remembered the idea and I hadn't written anything down yet. I just knew what the story idea was. So I started noodling and writing the idea and I loved it so much. I was like, okay, time to like put this into action. But it wasn't until 2018 that I actually self-published it. I had the manuscript sitting for a while. I pitched it to several agents and publishers. I got many rejections.
Yeah.
So I just thought, instead of keeping on waiting, I'm just going to publish this myself. I believe in my idea. And I think that's really important with self-publishing is you have to believe in your story and that the audience exists for your story. And so I believe that, and I got a great response with that book. I got requests from people saying, I want a polypure doll. I want this, I want, and I didn't have the infrastructure or anything to build that out yet, but it just helped encourage me to keep going. And so after that, I published during the pandemic a book called When We All Wear a Mask about the pandemic. And my brother's an ER physician, and just seeing what he was going through every day with, when we just didn't know a lot about COVID and how important masking was at the time to stop the spread. So I wrote a book about that. And then I wrote Unstoppable Z, which is my girls' affirmation picture book. And has companion coloring and activity books with it. That's by far one of my most popular books. And I also wrote a book called My Day with Grandma, which I absolutely love and is also a very, very popular book as well. And that one's actually picked up in my hometown in the public schools. So they carry it in kindergarten through third grade in all the classrooms.
Wow.
And that was a really special moment for me to come full circle and see that the school system that I came out of is now carrying my children's books.
Congratulations. Well, that's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
I think I've seen that on your page.
Yeah,
So you
thanks.
seem like you've been very successful with self-publishing. There's a lot of people who coming into the new year, they have dreams for publishing their own book. Where would you recommend they start, or what would you recommend they do to get going?
So I would say to start, it really depends, but I'd say start reading, go to your local library and start reading books that are similar to what you want to write or in the genre of what you want to write. If you know that you want to write a book for babies and toddlers, or do you want to write a middle grade book or in a picture book specifically for ages 2 to 8 years old, that's kind of the range that I'm in. If you know you want to write that book, go to the library, talk to your librarian, find out what books people are checking out, what's popular, and read them. And you can even look at the bestseller lists and all those things to see what, take those with a grain of salt, but you can see what people are purchasing too. But you can go to your library and check them out, read them, study them, understand what is drawing people to them, and ask parents and others, like, what do you read to your kid? Like, what do you like about it? Why does your child love this book? Because there are certain books that kids will read over and over and over again. And you just kind of want to understand that first. And then I would say, do not self-sabotage in writing your story. You can't publish a book you haven't written. So put it down on paper, just write it out. Even if it's a bad first draft, every first draft I've ever written has been awful. And has needed a lot of work. And so the good thing is once it's written, you can actually edit it. Self-editing, you can work with a developmental editor or a copy editor. The thing is, nowadays, there's just so many resources out there that you can self-source yourself without being agented and going through a publisher, but you can actually get professional editing done all on your own. You just reach out. There are professional editors out there who work in gig marketplaces like Fiverr and Upwork, and you can contract them to work on your book yourself. So it goes back again to believing in yourself, putting that time and effort in making sure that what you're producing is a quality book.
Okay, good. Now, you've been vocal about diversity in literature, I've noticed on a lot of your social media. So how does that tie into what you write?
So that's a huge part of my mission. I'm really, really passionate about making sure that Black children have stories where they feel seen, they feel represented, they feel like they belong. There's so many challenges that we have as a community. I feel like there's always room for more books where kids can feel seen and represented. So I felt as when I was growing up, I didn't have enough of that. And, there were so many books that I had at home that were all, Cinderella and Snow White and this and that. And there were not that many books that reflected who I was or what my experience was. And so that has always stayed with me and has been a focal point of why I feel like I want to create stories that other children who, like me, want to see themselves. And everyone wants to see themselves and feel like they belong, but also children who don't look like us need to see that we're human too. They need to feel that empathy. They need to feel like we're not. I saw a TikTok the other day of a little girl at a playground, and she was the only Black child, and the children around her were like, "Oh, she's an animal from the zoo."
What?
And it was so hurtful.
Oh.
And her mom was standing right there, and she's like, why do you think she's an animal? And it's just the lack of representation and awareness. Black children's books belong in all homes. And that way, your child can grow up with a sense, if your bookshelf is not diverse, how do they grow up with a sense of respecting all different cultures and all different faces and all different voices? So it's really important. And I stress this a lot. Like, if you want to support Black authors, your work carries through. It's not just about, okay, I want to buy a children's book from a Black author, but in your own home, you need to have that representation too for your own family. It goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's sad that child had to experience that. And in this day and age, it's
Yes.
just appalling
Yep.
that
It really is.
is going on. Yeah. So you've got the one book that was kind of the social emotional learning book you showed, Remember to Breathe.
Yes.
That's coming out in March.
Yes, it's coming in March. I'm super excited about this book. I wrote this book. I write a lot on my phone. So picture books are short, but I keep my notes app. I should say I draft a lot on my phone. As soon as I get a story idea, I write it down. And this book specifically, I had the story idea and then immediately wrote down, I was out somewhere and I said, let me just make a note what I want to write about. And that's how most of my books start. But I wrote this book because I feel like I did not have the tools at a young age to understand how to regulate my emotions and really focus on being self-reliant and using my breath. Now, in terms of being an adult and having all the things of stress and anxiety and getting more into meditation, this book I feel like is perfect for early beginning readers to understand at their level what it's like to take a breath, pause.
So what's the title of the book again?
The title is I Breathe for Me.
Okay.
And it's a rhyming book, but it's very, very much focused on positive affirmations, reminders. There's a great exercise at the end of the book that you can do, a daily breathing exercise about staying calm. And I think it's just going to be a really useful tool for children, especially children who look like my main character. Her name is Gabby. And to take a step back, and it's just about understanding what you're feeling in the moment, how to overcome challenges, and really focus on the strength that you have inside to get you through whatever you're going through.
Now you seem to be, very successful with the writing. What was your background before this? Have you written before or?
Yes, so I've always been a writer.
Okay.
So my mom, when I kind of moved out on my own, gave me this box of my short stories and was like, go do something with all of this writing that you do. And so I majored in journalism in college.
Okay.
And I also have a master's degree in strategic communication and integrated marketing. I've worked in marketing for almost 20 years. And so copywriting, editing, script writing, all of that has always been in my background in terms of advertising. But yeah, journalism was my first sort of career aspiration. And then once I got out of college, I just somehow ended up in the marketing world. But going back to writing has really been very fulfilling for me because it's such a big part of who I am.
Right. I was wondering about that because you seem very skilled with marketing. So say someone, wants to write their own book, they write it, they
Mhm.
use the professionals like you suggested. What would you recommend they do to market their book once they have it?
So I would say start, what I found to be successful in starting out with is social media is huge. But use social media as a tool to build your own email list and
Okay.
grow that list and nurture that list. And whatever platform you choose for your email distribution, there are so many tools in them now where you can set up um, a funnel. So basically, you are building your list, you're growing your engagement with your audience, you're giving them an offer, maybe a free giveaway, you're enticing them to come back to learn more about your book and your next book. It's really about building that full circle relationship with your target audience. And it's really important to know who that target is to really be successful with your marketing. So I think um, email marketing is very, very powerful. And for self-publishing, to me, it's super critical. You can post all day long on social media, but you need to understand who you're talking to, who the audience is for every email that you're going to send, and tailor it. So because you can filter and tailor, you can have a specific email for bookstores that you want to work with. So I segment my groups and my emails into monthly emails to bookstores, to actual people who've purchased from me before, to customers who I'm still trying to reach out to, who may have signed up for my email list, and get as much information from your target as possible in terms of what they want to learn about, what they're interested in. Giveaways really help with that. I did a period where I was doing contests and giveaways for, I want to say 3-4 months in a row. And because I'm so passionate about literacy, I love being able to give away a book or a collection of books to someone who entered my contest. But it also helps me learn more about my audience and what they liked and what they wanted. So yeah, I think email marketing is probably my top recommendation on how to start out.
So you do the giveaways on the email marketing
Hmm.
through your list.
I
Okay.
do, yeah. And I do them on social media too, but my email audience gets access first
Mhm.
to the giveaway earlier than the social media audience. And then some people may learn about it on social media and then subscribe. So you're always trying to grow that list because if any of these social media platforms shut down, you still want to have a way to communicate with your target reader.
Right. And this sounds like a lot of work and a lot
It
to
is
do.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
I want to say self-publishing as a whole is a lot of work. Um, but if you're passionate about it, it's worth it. It's so fulfilling when you get notes and tags from people who've read your book and, their kids fall in love with it. It's really rewarding to see, for me, to see little Black girls and boys reading my books and loving them so much and walking around with them and carrying, it's really great. So I think it's just important work. And to be able to be part of that, building that confidence and that self-assuredness at such a young age is really impactful. So, but it is, I would say, a 24-hour job.
Yeah, it seems like it is. I know from
I
experience.
know, you know.
Yeah, you do a lot. But
Yeah.
it's good that you're educating people on the importance of the diversity in the literature
Yeah.
as well for the kids.
Yeah.
And then I saw you also talked about authors of color writing different books, or can you speak to that or why
Yes.
you think that's important?
So I've talked about this. When you see like a Black child on the cover of a book and you go out and you buy it and you want to read it, the representation is great, right? But I think as a community, we have a duty to understand who the author, publisher, and illustrator is of that book. Because there are so many books out there that the children's book industry has been very hard historically for Black authors to break into and to get book deals. We have so many hurdles against us as a whole. But once major publishers sort of realize that there's an audience for books, like kids want to read books where they can see themselves, parents want those books where kids can see themselves. One of the barriers that, in just systemic racism, I'll just say it, is they move forward with publishing books with Black children that were not written by Black authors. And that still happens today. And there are many authors who, I don't think it's malicious potentially, but they think that they're going to come in and be the savior and have a Black children's book and bring this book that exists to an audience that may want to read it, without thinking about the fact that there are many Black authors out here who deserve the opportunity to tell our own authentic stories. And so instead of adopting a Black child on the cover of a book or as a main character in your book, if you are not Black, you need to ask yourself, why are you writing from a different cultural perspective than you belong? Is it a background character? Are you getting a sensitivity reader? What is your intention in not writing from your own voice? I think that's really important to ask yourself, because I see so many books, especially on Instagram, with Black children on the cover that are not written by Black authors. And then on the flip side, the publishers have spent so many, in the industry as a whole, and I'm not singling anybody out because I think there's been great strides and progress made, but there could be more. And the legacy of it, like it impacts not just the child or the family reading the book, it impacts the statistics and the long-term view of, okay, there's only X number, I want to say 10 to 12% of children's books that are Black child focused. And then even less than that written by Black authors. So a large percentage of that is written by white authors, frankly. And I think there should be more room set aside for authors of color to write about their own experiences and tell stories from our own perspectives. And so when you support, you go out and purchase, or you go to your library, I think it's just doing due diligence. If you care about representation in all spaces, take the time to do the due diligence and find out who wrote the book and who published the book and who illustrated the book. And I'm not saying every single one of those people needs to be Black if you're looking to support a Black author or a Black story, but at least make an informed decision versus, you look at books like Jabari Jumps, for example, that is so popular, or Ada Twist, the scientist. There was an Ada Twist scientist float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, wow.
That entire book to me is problematic because it was written by a white author and it has spun and grown into a huge franchise, TV shows, Netflix, YouTube, now the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And there's gatekeeping happening where that character and the premise, and people who still may not even know this is a Black character with TV show, book, series, what have you. But really, it's a white person that is making all the profit off of this Black scientist girl. That's just one example.
Yeah, it's something. I learned about this when my youngest son, I encouraged him to read a book that had a Black character, and he didn't relate to it at all. And I thought, well, it's got a little Black boy. Why don't you like this? Why won't you read? Because he didn't like reading at all, which I was totally embarrassed, my child. And then I learned it was written by a white author. And when I read it, it didn't ring true to me. And I understood why my son did not relate to it, because it wasn't, it just didn't feel authentic. And I had to dig to even find out who the author was, because they kind of kept it hidden.
That happens a lot. You won't see a picture, especially if you go on Amazon. Sometimes you won't see, they'll have the author bio, but no photo. So you gotta take the few minutes to do the Google search and find out who's behind the book.
Yeah. So that is, I feel like it's important for people to understand this. And as a creative, we all have creative license to write whatever we want to write. But I feel like African Americans make up 14% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
And why not let an African American person write from that
Exactly.
experience? Why would someone who's not part of the group want to write a
Exactly.
main character in that
Yep.
experience? So it makes you, it's things that make you go, when you
Mm-hmm.
see
Yep.
you see this being done.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your work. Can you tell us again how people can connect with you and
Yes.
connect with your books?
Yep. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Reesa Shayne Books. You can find me on my website and subscribe at reesashaynebooks.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter at Reesa Shayne and Threads at Reesa Shayne Books. So look out for my new book coming in March. I Breathe for Me.
Yeah,
And
that
thank you
looks
for
cool.
having me so much, Tonya.
Thank you, and good luck with all your upcoming books and all that you're doing. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for taking this time.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Write This. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.